Okay, thank you. I'll explain what this has to do with my becoming a UU in just a moment. This is for me a real crossroads. I finished 25 years here last week at Georgia Southern in Statesboro. When I came here, it was not a UU. Jane was not the first UU I met. It was Sherry Barr. And Sherry at that time had a little brochure, Stumbling Towards a Better Community. I always remember that brochure, and she was kind of recruiting a little bit, but like she still is. This picture here, Earth Rising, of course, is quite famous. And when William Anders died last week, the astronaut who took that, I read his obit just out of curiosity. And in that obit, to my surprise, he talked in detail how as they came around, he saw this Earth suddenly pop up, and the other people in the capsule with him, I think it was Apollo 8, had only black and white cameras. And he said, I got to get this in color. So they floated a camera over to him because they're up in space, and he took this and he had a revelation, new information. And he said, he had gone into space a convinced Catholic, but now it made no sense that there was some supercomputer up there, wondering whether Billy was a good boy yesterday. And what had the Pope to do with anything? He left that stuff aside. And that hit me because that's what I did too. A little bit younger than him. And, but I started off Catholic. My mother was not allowed to even enter any church that was not Catholic. My great uncles were Catholic priests. And my father was a Jesuit trained debater, went to Fordham in New York City. So when did I start to have some doubts? About the time that George Carlin did. He and I, about age 13, and he calls that the age of rationality, started to think hard about what was being told to us in church. Now, I couldn't show his reduction of the 10 commandments to 2 here in church, but it's up on YouTube. He reduced them, and I like this, to 2, try not to kill anyone and be faithful and honest. That's pretty good. Why try not to kill anyone? Well, he points out a lot of people get killed because of religion out there in God's name. So he reduces them down to 2. And I always had trouble with that one that you were sinning for what you think. You hadn't done anything, but you're just out back in the yard playing with your dog and you think something. And that sounded pretty kind of Chinese surveillance to me, what? Because I'm thinking something. And so about that time too, I was one of these, what we now call free range kids. I did a lot of unsupervised play. There were 4 of us. I grew up in a big neighborhood where there were lots of kids running around, big Catholic families. And there was a river nearby. So instead of going to church, a friend and I would go down to the river, which I'm going to see in 3 days. So I'm excited to be back with that river. And I might see this friend that I went with. He doesn't like to come to high school reunions, so I may see him. And we would go down there and just have fun for an hour, and then I would report back home that, yeah, church was great. So I always got that spirituality from being outside that our pagan friends and others here at UU have helped us appreciate, I think, even more. I also like that the Universalists make holy water by boiling the hell out of it. That was really good, so yeah, that's a church I'd like to be in. But I really hadn't heard of UU until I got here to Statesboro. I was pretty much unchurched. I had tried radical atheism, where you go and get in people's faces, and I didn't like that. But I given that a try when I was younger. So the membership here supports me, and it all supports the community. And to me, it provides a bulwark against many of the corruption and the dangers of organized religion, though we are too organized. And I read this book, pulled from a UU library, of course, When Religion Becomes Evil. And so I just wanted to point out some of the things, the chapters in that book, and it helps also explain why I'm a UU. First, absolute truth claims. I need to be in a church where there's a challenge to any kind of absolute truth claim. And this is where sacred text often gets us into trouble. The book points out that one of the weaker points of many creeds is sacred text. You're trapped in that sacred text. You're held back to an earlier era, and you can't move forward because you've got that sacred text. So I like UU because we bring in new information. And just like this astronaut who died at the age of 90, when he was confronted with Earth, new information that changed him theologically when he saw this evidence. So that's something that's important to me, to be in a church that says that. Also, IDK, I don't know. Very important to say that. And I've encountered many ministers and clergy who just won't say that, right? Why don't you just say you don't know? Because, okay, so it's important to be in a church where we say we don't know, and where questions are welcome as we try to search for them. Second, blind obedience. We need to be a bulwark against that, and we need to push back against what I see as a rise of fascism here in America right now. On our trip down the Rhine, several of the guides who took us on tours of really cool old towns in Germany made a big point that there were Germans and there were Nazis, and they were separate. And I didn't say anything, but I was like, wait a minute, we're in Germany, okay? And so that blind obedience, and to their credit, the Germans have a lot of laws to push back against ever again having to deal with the blind obedience that we seem to have trouble with. We see here in our own country, many churches getting into trouble with blind obedience. We have the split in the Methodist Church. We have the long-running problem in the Catholic Church with abuse victims. We have the Southern Baptist Convention is having problems with abuse victims and the role of women, and what they just reiterated that women are to be excluded. So again, UU provides a place where, not just for me, but for the community, we can have a place where we can push back against that and the absurdity that women can't be in the pulpit. Which always struck me even when I was young. Why is that so? Why are they gated off or put into? And they always said, oh yeah, it was a special place. I remember the priest saying to me, well, women have a special role. Later on, I found out that that was from Jim Crow, right? Yeah. African Americans have a special place, okay? So I need a church that pushes back against that. Third chapter in this book, establishing the ideal time, the idea that there will be an end time, so you better get your stuff in order. Many beliefs have this, and the idea that the end is coming. Christopher Hitchens points out that when Jesus said, drop everything and follow me, well, that's kind of, aren't you being a deadbeat dad if you do that? And what does that mean exactly? If you say, drop everything and follow me, and forget your family, everything, just follow me, okay? Those folks maybe believe that there was an end time. Yeah, I better follow this guy because the end is near. I was always amazed by the origin story for the Seventh-day Baptists, Adventists. I never considered joining them, but I was like, what's their origin story? And it was, they were Millerites before that. And Miller was a captain, and he was leading some American troops against the British. And suddenly the British turned back, and he attributed that to a supernatural force that saved him from having to fight a much bigger British force. And so he gathered followers around and said the world will come to an end sometime in 1842 or something. And then it didn't. And then he pushed it back 6 months and said, October, that's when it's ending. And it didn't. And then finally he said, well, I guess I was wrong about that. But this idea of an end time is very, very captivating. And the people who continue to believe that he was right are today's Seventh-day Adventists. That's their origin. So it always amazed me that people would do that. And again, I need to be in a church where that was questioned, that the world is not going to come to an end. It did in 2000, and what we had in 2012, the Mayan calendar said that things were going to end. But this is a very powerful pull on a lot of people. The end justifies the means. Okay, this is a church too where we need to say no, that you don't do anything to get to some end. Billy Graham said when he was 53 years old in the White House with President Nixon in the Oval Office, quote, Jews have a stranglehold on the media that needed to be broken because it was ruining the country. Nixon, you believe that? Graham, yes, sir. Nixon, boy, so do I. I can't ever say that, but I believe it. Graham, and this is important for right now. No, but if you get elected a second time, then we might be able to do something. Billy Graham and Nixon said that in 1972. It came out in 2002, was put up on YouTube, and Billy Graham apologized to his credit 30 years later. But my question, since I like to ask questions, is what were you doing saying that in the first place? You were 53 years old, well-renowned evangelist, had been all over the world, and you can say that. So I needed to be in a church where that was not going to happen, or that it would be quickly caught. And I think you can provide that. Today in Brunswick and the newspaper there's a permanent Billy Graham column. Every paper that comes out has a Billy Graham column. And his son is supporting the election a second time of you-know-who. So this is something that you say, well, is this getting political in the pulpit? Well, no, I think it's much deeper than that. We have democracy here that we're defending. It's not just politics anymore. So I need to be in a church that provides that bulwark and pushes back against that. Now, I didn't know this, but my UU roots go way back because, and we're going to go to the UU Columbus service next Sunday and maybe have a meal with Reverend Bellatini, who was there for a long time. When I was a little kid, my mom looked around Columbus and said, we got to put little Greg in a Montessori school. And she put me in a Montessori school. And that school, that building, is now the UU Church in Columbus. So I have roots going way back, though I don't even know. And another reason with UU is I like that we can constantly offer, we'll swap with you, right? We're happy to have your minister come here and give us a Sunday if you allow our minister to come to your place and give you a Sunday and express their theology in your place. You can come and do your theology here. I don't think we'll get John Waters from First Baptist here and do that swap, right? But to me, that's the essence of religion, that we're willing to swap at all times, that I'm going to be sitting next to someone who doesn't have the same creed that I do. That's what America is all about. That's what our founders wanted. So that's very important as a UU. And even my family now. I just saw a photo with my mother, Marky and Judy, who helped build this church, and her absolute best friend, Diane, who happens to be in the same assisted living with Marky and Judy out in Boulder, Colorado. So very small world. And her best friend of 50, 60 years going way back. I mean, my mom and this lady drink whiskey together. She's a UU president of the Boulder congregation. So they have long conversations. My mother is Catholic. I don't talk to her about that. She's 86. But she and Diane can talk about that. And Marky and Judy are, I guess, Diane's closest friends now. So it's a real small world with UU in that sense. Also, I've seen my older sister who has raised her kids in the Catholic Church. As the movie Spotlight came out, as the reaction toward female clergy and LGBTQ clergy in the Catholic Church, she now no longer attends their services and does not identify as a Catholic. Much like astronaut Anders, new information came out and she had to change. So that's real big on me, that the church has to allow for new information. And I think Bill Maher said it best when he said, you know, if Jesus came down at the Super Bowl and said, I'm back, okay, I would have to change. There he is, okay, he's come back, okay? So that would be new information too, that we would have to incorporate. So this book, When Religion Becomes Evil, lists these 5 things: the end justifies any means, establishing the ideal time, blind obedience, absolute truth claims, as things that are actually a threat from religion. So it's not all negative, though. It's not saying let's get rid of religion, let's get rid of faith. And it comes down at the end with people of faith can change a lot of things. So I don't mean to tear down faith. We have a wide variety in here, I believe, in faith. And I believe that faith and the natural world have a place. You don't have to have supernatural to have faith. But like the astronaut, that's the natural world. That's who we are. That's our big blue marble. And we need a church that's going to keep that blue marble going and sustainable. And all the things that we have with climate and with love are going to keep that blue marble spinning around. So I think it's very important that we have a church that supports the climate and the solar panels that we're doing. And I have to admit, no road to Damascus moment so far. So I have to be open that there could be a road to Damascus moment, you know, where someone comes in and gets a really good talk on some creed. I'm like, yeah, that's for me. Okay, and I'm off. And I've seen that happen with some of the kids that have gone through children's RE here, including my own children. But I know if they've gone through our RE, they're aware of other creeds that are out there. So I support Richard Dawkins, who said, we should never call a kid by a certain creed. They don't have the knowledge yet to do that. We can provide them with all kinds of information. Once they hit 18 or 19, you know, I think Khalil Gibran said, your children are not yours. So let them sail off and go into some particular creed. That's great. You've done what you could to show them that there are many creeds around, and then they go off on their own path, and they may have a road to Damascus moment as well. So thank you for coming to hear me, and I hope we can do more of this. And I really like the services. One of my favorites when we have 3 people up here doing this and sharing their individual theologies. So see you at Talkback.
Thank you.